I never expected love to arrive the way it did, quietly, like a warm wind entering a room without asking permission. I used to believe that love announced itself with thunder, with some unmistakable sign crashing through the familiar rhythm of my life. But when she appeared, everything unfolded with a softness that felt at first like coincidence and later like destiny disguised as ordinary moments. I met her on a late autumn afternoon, the kind where the sky carried a muted gold and the air hinted at early winter. I was at the small cafe near my apartment, the one I often visited not because the coffee was extraordinary but because it felt like a pocket of stillness amid the chaotic movements of the city. She entered just as I lifted my cup, and for a second, the world seemed to gain another layer of color, as if someone adjusted the lens through which I had been looking at life. What caught my attention wasn't anything dramatic. It was the way she paused at the counter, her expression thoughtful as she studied the menu even though it was obviously her first time there. There was a calm independence in her posture, yet a gentle curiosity in her eyes. I didn't know then that this tiny observation would become one of the many details I would carry inside me, details that would later build an entire universe around her presence. When she sat at the table beside mine, she offered a small smile, the kind people give strangers to acknowledge existence without inviting conversation. But something in that smile felt familiar, as if my heart recognized her long before my mind understood what was happening. I returned the smile, and for a moment, my world aligned with hers in perfect, silent harmony. It wasn't until the second or third time we ran into each other at the same cafe, always at different hours, always without planning, that we finally spoke. It began with a comment about the weather, evolved into a discussion about books, and then drifted into a conversation about dreams we weren't fully comfortable admitting even to ourselves. I remember thinking that talking to her felt like stepping into warm light after standing in the cold for too long. Nothing forced, nothing uncertain, just the natural unfolding of two people discovering that their inner maps pointed towards similar destinations. As days turned into weeks, I realized I looked for her in every corner of my life. I found myself returning to the cafe more often than necessary, hoping by some unspoken agreement she would appear. And she did, sometimes with a novel in her hand, sometimes with a tired smile after a long day, sometimes with a spark in her eyes that made me wonder about the stories living inside her. I grew addicted to the quiet gravity she carried, the kind that didn't pull you violently but drew you in with an irresistible, gentle force. The moment I knew I was falling in love wasn't cinematic. There was no sudden epiphany, no heart-stopping revelation. Instead, it came to me on an evening walk when she laughed at something I said, really laughed, with her whole face, the sound of it blending with the rustling leaves around us. I watched her, and in that simple instant, it felt as though my soul recognized a truth my mind had been circling for weeks. I wanted to be the person who could keep that laughter alive in her life. Love didn't change me overnight, but it made everything sharper, more vivid. I began noticing the world with the same attentiveness I noticed her. The way sunlight lingered on her hair when she stood near a window. The faint scent of books and vanilla that seemed to follow her. The subtle tremble in her voice when she spoke about something that mattered deeply. The courage it took for her to trust anyone with her thoughts. Every detail became an imprint on my memory, a quiet testament to how deeply she affected me. There were moments when I feared the intensity of what I felt. Love can be terrifying when it arrives with honesty instead of illusion. It asks you to open doors you've kept locked, to let someone see the fragile, unfinished parts of you. But with her, vulnerability didn't feel like a risk, it felt like a home I had been searching for. When I told her about my uncertainties, about the shadows in my past and the doubts in my present, she listened not as someone judging me but as someone holding space for the real version of who I was. And she offered her own truths in return. The fears she carried, the hopes she guarded carefully, the dreams she chased quietly, unsure if the world would make room for them. Every confession she shared felt like a gift. And every time I saw her strength beneath her softness, I fell deeper into the kind of love that grows from understanding, not projection. Our first kiss wasn't planned. It happened during one of our long evening walks, the sky painted in shy shades of blue and pink. We were talking about nothing and everything when she stopped, looked at me with a seriousness that felt both surprising and inevitable, and whispered my name. The way she said it, soft, uncertain, hopeful, sent a tremor through me. I brushed a strand of hair from her face, and before the world had time to intervene, our lips met. The kiss wasn't perfect. It was slightly awkward, filled with hesitation and discovery. But it was real, so real that I felt something in me shift permanently. The world around us didn't disappear. Instead, it blended into a quiet backdrop that allowed us to exist in our own small universe, one held together by shared breaths and unspoken promises. Love didn't turn everything into bliss, of course. We faced misunderstandings, moments of insecurity, days when exhaustion made us distant. But what made our love different was the choice we kept making, to return to each other, to talk, to stay even when discomfort tried to push us apart. It wasn't the absence of conflict but the presence of courage that solidified what we had. I realized then that love isn't a firework, it's a candle. Steady, warm, patient. Something you protect with your hands when the wind rises. Something you cherish because it illuminates not only the world around you but also the world within you. With her, I learned to be gentle. Not because she demanded it, but because her presence made me want to rise into the best version of myself. She inspired a tenderness I had long forgotten I was capable of. And in loving her, I rediscovered parts of myself that had been silent for years. Hope, bravery, joy, the simple delight of opening my eyes in the morning and knowing someone believed in me. There are still days when I look at her and feel that same quiet awe I felt the first time she walked into the cafe. Even now, I sometimes catch myself wondering how something so extraordinary found its way into an ordinary life like mine. But love, I've learned, has its own timing, its own mysterious way of weaving people together. And so, every day, I choose her. Not because I must, but because the world feels more complete, more meaningful, when she is part of it. My story is no longer just mine, it is ours. A story written not with grand gestures or dramatic twists but with the simple, powerful truth of two hearts learning to walk the same path. And if I were to summarize everything I feel, everything I've lived since meeting her, I would say this. Love didn't save me, it revealed me, and she, quietly, gently, effortlessly, became the place where my soul finally learned to rest.